Hey, it's Damian Nash here representing Rectify Gaming. We're at the Xbox booth right next to Sea of Thieves, and I am joined today by Joe Neate.
Yeah.
Joe,
pleasure to be here. Really good, man. Really good. Yeah, it's an awesome show. So yeah.
So if you've been under a rock or I don't know, out in the middle of the sea on an island,
Yeah.
What is it that you do for Rare?
I'm the executive producer on Sea of Thieves. So yeah.
Okay. Now with Sea of Thieves, it's been been a long road coming to where it is. What was the basis of Sea of Thieves? Like, how did Sea of Thieves become a thing? Because you guys went from kind of making, for a long time, you guys were kind of behind the scenes and did more Avatar stuff.
Connect Sports and that
Connect
kind of
Sports
stuff.
and all that stuff.
Yeah. So,
and then you guys, what got you guys back into doing like the mainstream games?
well, it's an interesting one. So I kind of moved off the previous project before it had finished with a few other people, and we just sat down with a blank slate. You know, Phil Spencer had taken over Xbox and was like, kind of, Rare, like, let's get Rare making Rare games, right? You know, like that was the kind of thing. And you know, Connect Sports was great for us as a studio, and it was really successful. I think that was like 10 million copies sold of the franchises all up, right? But it was good to actually have that kind of challenge and opportunity to have a completely blank slate and to be like, what do you want to do? And so we started looking at just this kind of emergence of shared world games, of games where players kind of have their own rules and roles and goals within them, and you know, watching videos of games like DayZ, playing the kind of the early mods of that and stuff. Even looking at some of the stories in games like EVE Online, which we found really interesting, really big at scale stories of players betraying each other over like months and years or something, right? So very different game experiences to Sea of Thieves, but still that same kind of creative DNA, I guess, of allowing players freedom and choice. And but we wanted something that, like a theme or a game that encouraged cooperation between players, and built kind of bonds up between people. But also had room for kind of competition, and also that when players kind of looked at this game, they'd kind of know what they wanted to go and do within it, and they'd kind of know how to use the mechanics or how to like use the features within there without us having to put like a really convoluted tutorial in place. And so, you know, our original pitch before we even chose the theme of pirates was players creating stories together. That was the phrase, right? And as soon as we started putting ideas up on the wall and pirates went up there, it was just like, you know, like Red Dead Redemption had done cowboys, right? And had taken a genre that maybe, or a theme that hadn't really fully landed and then suddenly exploded, right? And suddenly became the cowboy game. And it felt like there was an opportunity for that with pirate games. There's obviously been a bunch in the past, but that one kind of definitive game that really delivers on that kind of core pirate experience, we believed that was an opportunity we could go and nail. And if you think back to that, wanting cooperation, what better thing to get you to cooperate than a ship, right? And also that, you know, you don't really need to put like a really convoluted tutorial in place. You can just be like, put people on an island with a ship and they'll figure out how to get it sailing. And that sense of kind of discovery and is actually really satisfying. And I think there have been studies shown that if you learn something rather than get taught it, so you learn and figure it out yourself, you remember it much better, and actually it's kind of a stronger kind of thing. And so like we are really big fans of that, of just kind of, like, I don't mind if players are running around for 10 minutes not knowing what to do, because they figure it out and then it's actually really rewarding. And you know, I don't think we should patronise players. We should actually allow them to use their brains and figure stuff out. And it works perfectly for a game like Sea of Thieves. So
now, what are things that you're looking at? You're saying players creating their own stories.
Yeah.
How are you guys going to recognize players that, like, you got the most dastardly villain of a pirate out there?
Yeah.
What is ways that you guys are looking at utilizing the tools with Sea of Thieves to reward that type of villainy and infamy? Yeah,
so ultimately, like, players' goals when they start Sea of Thieves, it's going to become a pirate legend, right? And so, like, our progression systems, which our team's hard at work on at the moment at the studio, is going to be all around recognizing different play styles and rewarding different play styles. But ultimately, if you want to become kind of a legend, you almost have to dip your toe into everything, right? Like a bit of kind of skullduggery, a bit of sinking other ships, a bit of stealing stuff from other players, but a bit of going out and solving treasure quests or taking on bounties on kind of creatures in the world or whatever. And like, but however you choose to play, or the thing that most kind of excites you, like, that's how you'll be able to show up and represent yourself in the world. So like, you will earn kind of items of clothing, you'll earn kind of the item cosmetics as well for the things you hold, you know, like a really sexy gold shovel or whatever if you're a real kind of treasure hunter and stuff. And but so when other people see you, like, they'll know what kind of player you are, or at least what kind of player you're trying to represent yourself as. Because, like, you might want to just dress yourself in rags and like really look new, but actually be someone that's super high up and like and is because that's the player choice, and we want to give that to each other. You know, and so our initial goals around the progression system is all going to be around that kind of personal progression, and then as we move forward, we'll be looking at the ship side of things, around the ship customization, how that shows up in the world and everything else, because we know that's a really important kind of player expectation. But like in the not too distant future, we'll be introducing those progression systems into the technical alpha with the kind of players in the insider program and stuff. And at that point, we'll really talk to exactly how we're delivering it, because I think we actually spent quite a lot of time figuring out like what is the right progression system for a game like Sea of Thieves. We want something that rewards however people want to play, doesn't discourage this kind of creativity and fun and silliness that's in the game already, right? Like, you know, if you make progression system almost too compelling and demanding, then players will only chase that, and they'll stop firing themselves out of cannons and stop laughing when their ship sinks or whatever, right? It needs to be at the right balance. But we also felt that for a game as a service like Sea of Thieves is, that, you know, like when we come out in early 2018, that's really just the start of like the journey of this game, right? We want to be continually growing and adding and evolving, but like when we bring new features in, or we bring new quests in, or we bring whatever in, there'll be progression kind of wrapped around these, and so there's always new things to go and achieve, new things to go and seek, and so you're never just going to get to kind of a level limit or something like this and then be like, what do I do now? Or I have to wait for 6 months for this update or something, right? So so we'll talk to exactly what that is when we can. We like to show and tell.
With your inside stories, correct?
Yeah, exactly, right? Because like with Sea of Thieves, I think it. You kind of, the thing that really makes you get it is when you play it or when you watch videos of people playing it, right? And you're like, I get it, right? And the same applies to any of our features, because we're always trying to do something a little different, a little new, and something that's always, you know, inherently social and that fits the Sea of Thieves world. So yeah, but I feel really, really strong and confident about our progression systems and why they're going to be a little bit different to maybe what you've seen in other games, but perfectly right for this. So.
Now, you're talking about doing things new. You guys did something new with, and you guys showed this in one of your inside stories, with treasure chests, correct?
Yes. Yeah, so the fact that like your kind of progress in a session is at risk during a session until you can actually get it somewhere and kind of cash it in. And again, it just felt right for it to be a physical object in the world, and like, you know, it's kind of funny when people are like, where do I put it on the ship? It's like, well, wherever you want, right? But then you've got to remember where you put it, right? And if you put it on the bottom deck and then maybe you take on damage, maybe like it's at risk there. But these are one of the things where, again, you have to test it with real players, right? And so our insider program that we launched in December, like the first 1,000 is up to about 100,000 players now. We get to test these things because we felt good about it from playtesting it in the studio, but that's with 100 people, and we're all kind of biased, right? So, but to put it out there and be like, is this okay? A player's going to feel okay about, like, you know, the prospect of, you know, maybe some time being lost by this, but because it's really hard to do, it's really hard to steal a chest off another ship, like to be able to get on a ship, board it, steal a chest, get off the ship, not get killed, and like, because you know, when you hold a chest, you can't run, you can't wield a weapon, and so, like, when we first put it in, about 5% of chests that were getting turned in were stolen, which was a really cool. We were like, okay, that seems okay for us. And players, it scratches that itch of the players that want to be able to do that, and it adds a little bit of excitement to, you know, when you've got a chest and deciding if you see a ship, what do you do now? Do you try and, you know, run away, or do you like try and steal something off them or whatever? And so, like, but it's one of those things where we felt good about it, so we've tested it with our players and it's landed really well. You know, and we'll keep doing that. I think like our insider program is kind of like our version of early access, right? Because I think there's a lot that's really good about early access, especially for these type of games, in terms of being able to get stuff into players' hands early, like learn from players and learn what works and what doesn't, and also to build up a community around a game, because this is a new IP, right? Sure, we're rare and we've got a fan base, but we don't have a right for any of those fans to kind of, you know, come along to this game and just be like, yeah, we'll come and play it because you're Rare fans. It's like, you know, Sea of Thieves has to stand on its own, and so building an entirely new community around this game is super important, right? Because multiplayer needs community, it needs active player base, it needs people helping each other and guiding each other and making tutorial videos or writing the wiki pages or whatever. And so it's so cool for us to see that, like when we're doing like mixer streams or whatever, like so many of our members of our community are in there commenting and answering questions, like almost like I couldn't have written it better myself about, you know, well, what is Sea of Thieves? Oh, it's a shared world adventure game, blah, blah, blah. And like, and it was totally, I think we've kind of been very open and transparent with our player base, and I think it builds that relationship. Like, it just feels like we're all kind of one big team, and so I'm very happy with how the Insider program has gone and how this approach. I don't like I was chatting about this with Craig, our studio head, a little while ago, and you know, thinking about as and when I ever make a new game, which could be like never, right? If like Sea of Thieves does amazingly, but like I was like I couldn't think of doing it any other way, like this, you know, like I couldn't go back to the traditional, like to work in secret for like years and then have one single release date and cross your fingers and hope it's going to be successful. You know, this feels so right for this type of game and for the modern day, right, where like community and player base and player health and all that kind of stuff is so important. So
now, one of the other things is that big thing with games is clans, guilds, all that thing. Have you guys already been? I mean, I'm sure you have, but have you guys discussed how you guys are going to address clans? How, you know, because if you're not careful, you know, it's about balance and stuff like that. You get a large clan going into it. I mean, because you guys mentioned Eve, and so I start thinking of Goon Squad and things like that. You know, all these you start talking about all the groups that go against each other. How do you guys plan on addressing that, or if you can talk about that?
Yeah, well, I think Eve is like it's a fascinating game, right? And I'd like, although I reference it in our early kind of pitch work, I guess it was more the stories that you're kind of referencing actually about those big clans and stuff, and it was a really powerful game because of the world, because of that stuff, and so, but we're not making the same type of game as Eve Online, right? Like, you know, and you know what, like we always believe in having a low barrier to entry for Sea of Thieves, and we all, like, whenever you come into the game, like if you you should be able to play with somebody that's got 500 hours. There shouldn't be barriers in place that stops that. Like, so, you know, if your friend comes in and you're going, come on, you should play after you've been playing for 6 months, they should be able to come in and play with you and kind of almost share in your progression a little bit and in your knowledge and stuff. Like, and so when it comes to kind of like clans or bigger groups and stuff, it's definitely in our kind of roadmap to support. Like, it's not for our initial launch, like, but we want to see, again, what are the things players are most demanding of? Because I've got a roadmap, right, like back at the studio, post-its on the wall, through to like 2020 or something, right? But like, and I can't think any further, basically, that's why. But and you know, and as that roadmap gets further out, it gets slightly less like foggier. But we're really keen to see what are the things players are asking the most of all. What are they demanding? Like that's the key thing for us. And so, if that kind of clan support is the thing that's really important, then we'll push it up the priority list. But we'll do it in the right way for Sea of Thieves that supports our ambitions, and we're not just going to be taking a cookie cutter kind of way of doing it for something else, because we always want it to be that open and welcoming game where you know, you can play with anybody, and it's just the right balance of fun versus kind of hardcore and everything. So like, you know, so it's definitely something we've got an eye on, and it's just, you know, and whether we'll call it plans or we'll call it something more appropriately, we've had some thoughts on that. But you know, it's like, it's kind of hard to talk about the future of Sea of Thieves because there's so many different ways we can go with it, right?
Exactly.
It's just got so many possibilities, I guess, for the game. But I think, like we've been doing with the Insider program, you know, we've been reprioritizing features, we've been changing things based on how they land with players. You know, it's like social spaces is another one, right? Is there a dedicated social space? And we're like, kind of the game is a dedicated social space, right? and so it's like, and that seems to be okay for now. But are people going to really want this, or like? And at the moment, I don't think it is like pushing really high up our priority list. But so because Sea of Thieves is different and unique, like we have to take an approach to any of those kind of features in the same way. Really.
So as it stands right now, I mean, still got a while before launch or whatnot, but
early 2018.
Is it going to, right now, is it just the 4 players, you get into a game, you can get in with 4 of your friends and play?
Yeah.
Is there any idea that there may be in the future a larger group, like if you're like, hey, I want to play with 6 people or 8, are there ideas of maybe ships that support that?
It's always a possibility, and again, we'll see what our players are kind of demanding. So one of the things we're working on at the moment is the smaller ship, which is for like 1 to 2 players, really. And so you can come into the game on your own, but it's always a shared world. You're always going to be in a world where there might be bigger ships in there too, with more players, and it actually is a really different feel, a really unique feel. But that's, you know, maybe for people who aren't super comfortable with multiplayer games, or they're worried about competition with players and playing with others. It's a really good avenue into this game, and then see, oh, is this the type of game I want to play? And then maybe they'll start making friends and everything in the game. But our goal was always like we never want to go to like 10 people on a ship or something, because it's like in any social environment, the more people you have, the harder it is to kind of keep that bond together as a group. Like if you go out with a bunch of friends to a pub and there's 10 of you, you'll end up chatting in 3 or 4 separate groups, right? And the same would happen in the Sea of Thieves. And that bond between the players in a crew is what's so crucial to us. So we're going with 4 for the moment for that larger ship. And then we'll see if we want to go to 5, do we want to go to 6, but I don't think we'd ever go much beyond that, just because of that bond, that social stuff being so important.
Okay, now in closing, I'm going to come up with a question, and I know a lot of these questions you've answered before, but got to talk a little bit. When you're doing a shared world game shooter, any style of game, people start thinking about raids and things like that.
Yep.
And in a pirate game, you start thinking about how things are going to go. Is it's going to be like an underwater cave we find?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be the Kraken?
We've shown a lot of in some of our promotional materials, little limbs coming out the water and stuff, right? So it's definitely on our roadmap, and like it's going to be a big event. Like in terms of how we introduce that into the game, how we introduce it to players. We've got some super cool stuff going on at the moment on that front. I think. Like our team is split across 5 areas, like 5 key areas for the game. There's like the core game experience, which is like kind of what you play right here. How the ships sail, the storms, the gunplay, and then you've got the AI in the world. And we have skeletons and sharks at the moment, and so that's investing the time in kind of getting land AI working and all the nav mesh and everything, and then the sea AI, which is very different because it's all 3D space and everything. And then doing different AI and more on top of that, and adding more variety and depth to the world is a lot easier from that point on, because you've got all of the systems in place, right? Now it's just an animation, behavior kind of model kind of challenge. And the same with quests. We've got the X marks the spot, we've got the riddle maps, and now going and doing more different types of quests to play in different ways, is a lot easier for us. And so we've got that base in place. But the core kind of area that we're working on the most is the progression stuff, right? But each of those teams, like AI, Quest, Progression, Game Experience, and PC, all have their goals. I've seen some cool stuff in like recent team updates that we have every Monday. We show off progress across the team to each other, and there's some fun stuff coming down the pipe.
Great. I look forward to early 2018.
Yeah, so do I.
It has been great.
Beyond. Yeah, cheers, man. Thank you very much.